This is the perfect time to just talk about this other op-ed that you wrote a while back, which I noted, which was, essentially about pronouns and why you're arguing when people ask you about them, you should just simply ignore them, I guess, or say you're not going to do it. So, we've talked about, I think, quite a bit why, but it might not be obvious. So tell me that. Tell me your rationale here.
So I see the whole talk of pronouns, and it's a very common thing now. In some places, where I'm from, Tennessee, is probably not a big deal, but if you're in San Francisco or something, a lot of corporations there, a lot of the schools there, they'll start off sort of these icebreakers with these introductions where they're asking, hi, my name is whatever, my pronouns are he, him, what are yours? And it seems really innocuous to someone looking out, because this idea, we all have pronouns, people refer to me as him, people refer to you as him. But there's a bit of ideology that's underneath this entire thing, because what this new ideology that it's being increasingly called gender ideology, what it really asserts is that being a man or a woman or a boy or a girl has nothing to do with whether you're male or female, and everything to do with gender identity, how you identify, which really just boils down to identifying with these sort of social roles and expectations that society sort of, asserts on people based on their sex. These ideas, women, if you're a woman, you have to be nurturing. If you're a male, you have to be, domineering and aggressive. And so it's whether or not you identify with these roles. If I say, you can refer to me with he, him pronouns, I might be just saying to use those pronouns because I'm biologically male. That's what I refer to. That's when I use someone's pronouns, because they're male or female. But when you say that to someone who believes in this new gender ideology, what they're hearing is you identify with the social roles and expectations of femininity or masculinity. So if you're a woman and you say, I use she, her pronouns, you're saying you identify with femininity especially, which, maybe you're a masculine female and you don't identify with femininity, and now you all of a sudden can't call yourself she or her. I view these insistence on having these pronoun rituals and exchanges as sort of a way to normalize gender ideology, and just by our everyday introductory ice-breaking things here and there. And the people who are participating in that, they probably don't even know what they're doing. The people leading these pronoun events, they probably don't even realize what they're doing. They've just been told it's the inclusive, good way to go about doing things and to learn people's pronouns. But it does have a really big ideological component. And so I just tell people, either tell people to call you by your name, or just don't participate in these whatsoever. Now, I'm usually okay using other people's pronouns, but when they ask me, it's like, oh, I'm Colin. You can use whatever pronouns are most comfortable with you. This something like that, but I don't think we should be participating ourselves in these types of exchanges unless you actually agree with gender ideology. And a way I pointed this out in the op-ed was, imagine that I think the American Astrological Society was this big organization that has a lot of control over institutions. But say you don't believe in astrology, you think it's pseudoscience, which I happen to believe. But they want you to begin all your conversations with, hi, I'm Colin, I'm a Sagittarius. What's your sign? If you don't believe in astrology, if you're just going to respond, I'm Jan, what are you?
Taurus, I believe.
You're Taurus.
No, wait, no, I'm Scorpio. Pardon
exactly.
me.
Yeah.
Scorpio.
So if you're responding that, but if you don't believe in astrology, you're being asked to sort of work within this worldview that you might not believe at all, and perpetuating astrology in this case. So I see this as sort of a parallel to the whole gender pronoun.
We live in an era of censorship and disinformation, and it can be really hard to know what's true and what's false in this information climate. To get honest information and insights you can trust, join us on Epoch TV. You can sign up for your 14-day free trial at ept.ms/freetrialjan. That's ept.ms/freetrialjan.
Yeah, and except that people might say, what does it hurt? In both cases, actually, right? What does it hurt if they want to know that I'm a Scorpio? What does it hurt? right? This is presumably what a lot of people think, and they'll just go along with it.
Yeah.
What is the cost, real cost?
Well, it depends on how much power an astrological society would have over a society. There's probably a lot of things they could mess up, but at least in the terms of the gender ideology, I don't think it's not necessarily harmful, at your workplace when you're doing it. Like, what's the measurable harm right there? But I see the harm as like the normalization of this dissociation of being a man or woman with being male or female, because this puts this idea, especially in children's minds, that especially if they're identifying with stereotypes, that if you're a little girl who's more masculine, and you're being asked what your pronouns are, and to really think hard about your gender identity, and you're basing it on stereotypes, you might think, oh, maybe my pronouns are he, him. That makes me trans. And then we have this whole system of medicalization going in there, saying, well, if you're transgender, that means that this is a medical condition, and that maybe we can give this person puberty blockers, which is sort of a gateway to cross-sex hormones and surgeries and things like that. It really just makes kids who aren't trans think that they are, and puts them on a potentially precarious pathway to interventions. I think it really medicalizes gender nonconformity in a very real way. So if this was just kids, having a new way to talk about whether they're masculine or feminine, that'd be one thing. But it's got the whole like gender ideology trans conversation that comes in on it, which is a medicalized conversation in and of itself. So that's why I think that is potentially dangerous for kids to be taught.
Well, and to your point, I mean, I saw some statistics recently, I don't remember exactly, but just like a astronomical rise in people identifying this way. So the question was, how much of that is influenced by the social norm, so to speak, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation about why there is this astronomical rise in people claiming to be trans, or at least people going to gender clinics to presenting as trans. You tend to get from the trans activist side them saying that, well, this is just, there's greater societal acceptance now of being trans. So people they've always been this number of trans people. They just feel comfortable to say it right now. And sure, maybe that explains some of this. Then there's the other argument that there's some social contagion going on. You had the Brown University researcher Lisa Littman sort of showed how some of these trans identities run in circles, and the biggest predictor of whether someone's going to come out and say they're trans is whether how many of their friends are claiming to be trans as well. I think this explains probably more than just societal acceptance, but I think there's actually just a really clear thing that people aren't talking about as much. It's just sitting right there. There's just been this expanding definition of what it means to be trans. I mean, I'm writing a piece right now that's going to spell this out in greater detail, but if you look at the organizations, these big human rights organizations, the HRC, Human Rights Campaign, if you look at Planned Parenthood, if you look at this company called eGale, this is in Canada, and they're responsible for all the LGBTQ plus materials in the public schools up there. And especially one video that eGale put out, they literally define what it means to be trans as, I think this is a verbatim quote, you can check the video.